What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you've all had a good fortnight off from domestic football. I thought I'd do a generalised video today, a quick one, and that is about the management situation at Celtic, the AGM that's taking place tomorrow, the Green Brigade ban, and all the issues involving the club. So, we still haven't got a manager in place. Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney are still in charge. I think that's a risk, but, you know, I would rather have them than Neil Lennon at this point. Wilfred Nancy is the clear favourite to become the next Celtic manager, but the deal has been dragging on for the last week and a half or so. There was talk about Nancy being appointed last weekend. It never happened. I've been reading stuff online. Apparently, it's to do with his coaching staff. What an absolute joke. Celtic always do this. You know, a manager who they wants to come in, wants to bring his own coaching team in. And Celtic don't allow them to. Celtic say, oh, well, you're going to have Gavin Strachan. You're not allowed your own people. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, the Celtic board getting involved once again, you know, when they're not supposed to. It's not their fucking right to get involved with the coaching. It's got nothing to do with them. What the fuck do they have to get involved for? It's ridiculous. Pisses everybody off. I don't think we'll get Wilfred Nancy. I've got a bad feeling that deal's going to fall through. I know a lot of people don't want him. I've seen a lot of people say, well, Wilfred Nancy's a cheap option. Why are we not going for Knutson? Why are we not going for Nicky Hyen? Why are we not going for Kieran McKenna? I do get it. I do understand it. I don't think he's the worst option. I think the worst option would be Robbie Keane. I don't want him anywhere near Celtic as the next manager. I'm worried that he will be the next manager in the back of my mind. If Celtic fuck this up with Wilfred Nancy, which they probably will because that's what they're fucking like. The AGM's tomorrow. In the morning, 10:30 at Celtic Park. I hope fans go there and protest against it. You know, I hope people in there actually wake up and smell the coffee and realise that these people don't give a fuck about Celtic and they're so outdated and need to be removed. The Celtic Collective have called out every member of the board. Desmond, Nicholson, Sharon Brown, Tom Allison, Michael Nicholson, Peter Lawwell. They've all said that they need to go and their time's up at Celtic, which it is. You know, they all need to be removed. Hopefully, Brian Wilson, he got voted against last year. A lot of people don't want Brian Wilson at the club any longer. Like the last AGM, people voted against him and said that he's a major problem at the club. He is a major problem. I want Brian Wilson gone. He's absolutely useless. He doesn't hold the board to account. He's a non-director. It's his job to hold the board to account for any mistakes that they make. He never does it correctly. He's part of the problem. But he's not the only problem. They all need to go. You know, Lawwell needs to fuck off and never come back. You know, why he came back in the first place. Probably never even left in the first place, let's be honest. Why he's still at the club is ridiculous after the COVID season. Should never have been allowed to come back. Desmond is lazy, doesn't give a fuck about Celtic. All he cares about is golf. Only turns up when he feels like it. You know, that needs to be brought up. Why is he not at the AGM at all? He'll send Ros Desmond, who again should have nothing to do with Celtic. With all due respect to Ros Desmond, I don't know what he's like, but he's probably like Dermot Desmond, to be honest. Doesn't give a fuck about Celtic. All he cares about is business. Fuck off and go and invest in another business then, which is not a sport franchise, a football club. You know, because that's what we are. We're not a fucking retailer like these people run us as. It's ridiculous. They all need to be removed. The Green Brigade ban. Apparently people are having their doors kicked in. You know, absolutely outrageous if that's what the club are doing. You know, I wouldn't surprise me. The board hate the Green Brigade. The Green Brigade hate the board. They hate the boys. They hate every supporter. You know, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying the Green Brigade are angels. You know, the Green Brigade have made a lot of mistakes with Palestine flags and, you know, violent incidents and stuff. I'm not saying they're perfect. They obviously have been banned by the club. But fans still broke into the stadium. Well, they didn't break in, but they still got into the stadium and sat in other sections of the ground. In other sections, like I said, because other fans obviously let them in and gave them tickets and stuff. A lot of the fans are like the Green Brigade, are with them. Some fans don't, and that's fine. You know, but don't defend the board because they're not perfect either. You know, they're the major problem at the club, not the Green Brigade, in my personal opinion. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with Celtic sending police to people's houses and kicking their doors. I think that's outrageous. It really, really is. You know, Celtic are an absolute joke right now. You know, everything's just an absolute joke, to be honest. And the main people who are at fault for it are the board, in my personal opinion. They're the ones who cause the arguments. They're the ones who cause the frustration. They're the ones who have no ambition to take this club forward. We haven't even got a manager. How pathetic. Celtic have had over 2 weeks to get a manager in. Have they done it? No, because that's what they're like. We're going into an AGM where things need to be asked. You know, this enough's enough now. You know, support. If you're a major shareholder at Celtic, you know, I know it's hard to have a say if you've got limited shares and stuff, but, you know, at least put yourself forward. You know, the Celtic Trust are going to try and do that. You know, they've come out with a plan of what they want to be put forward to the board and against the board and stuff. Same with the Celtic Collective. You know, there is fans who have shares in this club. They should have a say. I honestly think that fans should have a say in every football club. If you've got shares, doesn't matter how little shares you've got compared to somebody else, you should have a say on the club and how it's being run. I think that the board have far too much power. I think Dermot Desmond needs to be removed. I know that's really hard. He probably won't be removed. If anything, the board might go, hopefully, but I don't think so. I don't think they will. I've got a bad feeling we're going to be stuck in this situation for a lot longer until we really have some kind of devastating financial like loss of money or something. I mean, the club's already losing money. The Adidas deal, you know, it's not selling out. You had the whole issue with the voting with the Celtic Trust. You know, again, technical issues. Won't surprise me if the board are trying to block votes because that's what they're like, to use anything to their advantage. But it's not fair. You know, they're not nice to us. They don't like us. They treat us like crap. I hate them. I want them all to go. If Wilfred Nancy is the next step manager, I'll obviously back him. But I don't think he will be, to be honest. I think Celtic are going to end up with something like Robbie Keane, who I don't want anywhere near Celtic. That's a fucking disaster. Nancy might be a disaster, but I'd rather take a chance on him. At least Wilfred Nancy, you know, has got experience. You know, I know Robbie Keane's done well in Israel and he's done well in Hungary with Ferencváros, but I just don't think Robbie Keane will be a good appointment because he reminds me a lot like Neil Lennon. And I don't want him anywhere near Celtic. I just don't think Robbie Keane would be a good appointment, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if Martin stays to the end of the season as well. That wouldn't surprise me. We've got injuries as well. Obviously, Saturday's game against St Mirren is a huge game. We have to win that game. Obviously, the injuries are not ideal. You know, Kobe Donovan got injured and was taken off for the Scotland under-21s. Sebastian Tanecki had to go up. I don't think he played for Tunisia because of a thigh injury. So that's two other players who are out injured potentially. We don't know when Iheanacho is going to be back. Alistair Johnson is out long term. You've obviously got Callum Osmond is out long term as well. Cameron Carter-Vickers, very disappointing. Not in the injury list is absolutely outrageous. It really is. There's something clearly wrong with Celtic and their fitness regime because the injuries we've got are just outrageous. Happens all the time and it's so bloody frustrating because not only do the injuries frustrate everybody, but also the lack of quality and players that we've got to come in. You know, we've got and then what happens if Ralston gets injured, for example? We've got no one to play right back. Ridiculous. Celtic are an absolute shambles. Like I said, if I was in Glasgow, which I'm not, unfortunately, I live miles away in England, so obviously I'm too far away to say anything against these people, but, you know, I encourage anybody who is a Celtic shareholder to just say what you need to say, you know, just in numbers, protest. Fans need to go to that AGM and get it hijacked. You know, the board shouldn't be allowed to fucking dictate this AGM. You know, this AGM needs to be the final straw for me, I think, with these people. Even if we get Michael Nicholson out, hopefully, because there's rumours about Michael Nicholson leaving. Hopefully that's the case. Peter Lawwell stepping down and hopefully never coming back this time. Fingers crossed that's the case. Peter Lawwell goes, but it's not just them two that need to go. Even if you get rid of them, you know, Buckai's still going to be there. Brown's still going to be there. Allison's still going to be there. Devsman's still going to be there. They all need to be removed. There needs to be a vote of no confidence against these people in high numbers. You know, every shareholder, you know, even the ones who've never spoken about Celtic, who are part of the problem, you know, they need to say something to Dermot Desmond and say, why have you got so much of a say over Celtic and all the decision making? You're the biggest shareholder in the club. You're not the owner. Nobody owns Celtic as a football club. You know, you don't give us any say. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, I know Desmond probably will have certain shareholdings in some of the other shareholders, but still, you know, at least these people need to wake up and smell the coffee. You know, like James Keane, for example, needs to say to Dermot Desmond, you know, Chris Trainer as well, people like this who have got large shares in Celtic need to say to Dermot Desmond, look, Dermot, you completely fucked the club up for years. We're not going to, you know, we don't buy your bollocks as the biggest shareholder. We're going to vote against you at the AGM, because that's what needs to happen. There needs to be votes against Dermot Desmond. You know, the Celtic Trust, say Celtic Trust and Chris Trainer, for example, say they vote together and put all their shares together against Dermot Desmond. Hopefully that'll do something. I don't know if that could happen. I'm not sure how it all works, to be honest. But, you know, that's what needs to happen, because the Celtic Trust on their own can't do anything, really. They haven't got enough shares in the club, unfortunately, because Celtic, like Dermot Desmond's got the highest stake, and then you've got, like, Chris Trainer as well, Lisdall Train. But Lisdall Train, I think they're the second highest shareholder in the club. They got rid of some of their shares recently, so maybe they're starting to realise, you know, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. You know, Celtic's not progressing. I don't want to invest as much as I was before. You know, that's an interesting sign why Lisdall Train sold their shares. Be interesting to see what that's all about. Whether that'll be brought up in the AGM, I don't know. But the AGM, I'll do a reaction to it in the next few days. Obviously, I'll do a reaction to the St Mirren game on Saturday. But yeah, I just thought I'd do a generalised video. You know, at the moment, nothing's changed. Celtic's still a fucking mess, no surprise. With the management situation, still no manager permanently. Issues with the club, again, in terms of the board and the fans. Green Brigade ban and everything like that. It's not a good look. It's been a disaster of a season. Even worse than the COVID season, because the fans, obviously, are there all the time now at gates. Whereas in COVID, they weren't allowed to be in attendance, so it's a bit different now. The board has nowhere to hide. You know, they're the biggest problem and need to be removed, in my opinion. But that's my thoughts on the generalised situation. I'll do a reaction to the AGM over the next few days, and I'll also do a reaction to the St Mirren Celtic game on Saturday. I'll let you know my thoughts and opinions on that once I've gone back and viewed the highlights and stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.